Welcome back to the Giro3 YouTube channel. Okay, in today's video we're looking at an Create RC5 rotator that I am repairing, rebuilding and upgrading. This is to go with the controller, the DC controller that I am in the process of building at the same time. So the original rotator for this one had a lot of damage. I had to the casings were basically stuffed. There was a lot of stuff that was stuffed in it basically. So I've got a refurbished top and bottom casing. I've got a brand new output flange because it was basically stuffed as well. So there's a brand new output flange. Marsh clamps have been glass bead blasted and painted. The casings have as well in this pewter colour. So this one was in good enough condition. I didn't need to do the inside, hence why I'm using this one, as opposed to the other one was basically it had come to an end of its life. So basically, yeah, and I think I remember correctly, there was a lightning strike and things were damaged. So there's a lot of things that had to be replaced in it. So like I've had to replace the drive gear, brand new drive gear. Plug was okay for some strange reason, but a socket I should say, so I've got that. A brand new plug will be supplied with this particular, it's in the plastic bag still, as you can see. So I had to replace the potentiometer Z bracket, the pot drive gear. I'm using a refurbished cover for the worm chamber, a refurbished direction switch, a new mounting bracket. I've got to modify this to suit the motor, new worm shaft, new cover, and we have all the brass bits and pieces for the worm gear. A little upgrade that I do to the worm chamber, this little one, I've mentioned before in previous videos. This is something I've been developing, so I'll show you more about that later on. Of course, down in here we've got the thrust washer and all the appropriate bits and pieces that I use to upgrade the worm chamber, and of course we've got the Teflon bushes, the end bushes. There's a few little bits and pieces, there's sundry parts that I've got to physically use as well, like nuts and bolts and stuff like that. But the motor I'll be using is this one here. It's an IDEC, which is technically the Japanese servo company. This is one of the biggest ones they make, a DM60 SB. This is the next size up from what is in a G2800. This is what's actually used in a imitator 1200, and I believe it's the same one that was used in the 1800 as well. So basically this is the newer version. So this is a brand new motor, and they now have bearings in the top. I had bushes top and bottom before. Now they have a bearing on the top and bushes in the bottom. So basically that, and I've got whether I'll be using it, I have a replacement top motor plate. So just depending on which one I'm going to be using to do this upgrade. I've got a coupling. This is a coupling that I found. It's not the genuine one. This is one that I got from a bearing place. Has that be sitting there, and I went, oh, perfect. And it's going to suit the slightly smaller shaft on this one than the ones in the AC motors. So the other thing too that I happen to have, the worm gear and worm wheel for a DC motor. This is the ones that's used in the B4 and also in the elevation rotators and in the their 12 volt DC version. So basically, yeah, it is what they use. So you've got a DC motor, you've got to gear it down because they rev so hard. I mean, this thing, as you can probably see in here, this thing's going to rev at 4,300 RPM. The AC motors do about 13 to 1,600 RPM, so it's a lot more. So what else we got? We have a replacement final drive gear and main shaft assembly. This was part of the parts that I just get over the time as I need to do a job. So I try to keep a lot of parts in stock. and that's just one of them. I'm just using what I've got, so I'm not going to go and buy anything extra. I mean, the main reason I'm doing it in the DC is because, you know, there was so much damage to the controller. Now that meant new PC boards, a new transformer, and it was just getting on and on and on. So, well, I had the parts to do my little mod, which I showed you in the previous video. So basically, and I've got these motors in stock, so hence why I'm converting it. I've got all this other stuff in stock, so I haven't got to go buy anything. I can just physically build this and get this rotator back in service. So basically, yes, we shall carry on, carry forth. I'm going to start the assembly process of this and all the upgrades and bits and pieces, and I'll be taking you along for the ride of how I'm going about this, and we shall hopefully get to the end of it soon. Catch you in part 2. Bye. Okay, we're back. A little bit of an update for you. First things, I've got the motor plate. I actually ended up using the stainless steel plate because the other one had ridges on it, which will get affected by their base mounting plate. I've actually installed the coupling. This is one half of the coupling, the other half is over there. I've actually put on this one, it makes it a bit easier when we put in self-clinching nuts into the bottom housing, so they can be screwed straight into the bottom chassis, and basically then we can align these. These have elongated holes in them, and I've got holes so I can actually elongate these holes in this, and I can actually adjust it in position, which makes things a lot easier. Number 2 thing I've done to the DC motor is I've removed the back housing, and I have installed the RF filters and the the 0.1 ohm capacitors. So that's all happening. They're just drying off at the present moment. Good old JB Weld is holding them in place, so they're not going to go anywhere. Rightio, so that's ready to go. I have installed the pot into the bracket and I've wired it, so that is now ready to go. I have also done the limit switch assembly with the diodes. You can probably just see the diodes in here. Diodes just sitting in there and there. I've wired in the return. This purple wire is the limit return, so when the limit switches get hit, volts are sent back down to the controller and the LED and the display will come on. So basically we'll have limit happening on those. So that's all been wired, all new wiring on this. So that's that. We have the shows you how new these are. These are the brushes for the motor, and there's the end caps for them. So that's sitting there. I've also done a little mod to the underside of the cover plate for the worm chamber. This scrapes this sits in here like this. So I'll start again too. There's the worm wheel. This is the mod I do to the worm wheel. I silicon all the excess not used parts of the gear, and I push on 2 O-rings, and they rub up hard against the bottom here. We can't see it in there, maybe. And this curve, so basically that just sweeps any excess grease off the top of the worm gear. It leaves a fine smear on there, but as it goes around, it's mainly used for in the rotation of that way, because all the grease is getting moved up on the top of the gear, and that just pushes more out the top of it. So basically, I'm using a self-leveling grease at the present moment, so it's a very fluidy grease. So I just like to try and keep it all in there. So there's just a couple of little mods that I've been doing. So this just swipes and gets rid of a bit of the grease off the top of it. And when we show you the bottom already has a swiper on it. So you see the little point in here that actually directs grease, in this case the grease under the wheel. So when you spin it that way, this is the worm wheel, this is the worm gear I should say, it actually drags and pushes it back underneath the gear, which is good. But it's only when it drives that way it drags it out from here and puts it on top of the worm gear. Hence why I've developed up this scraper, we can call it a wedge scraper, just to physically get rid of and keep the wedge, because where you see where it goes, it forces it back onto here. So it just forces it back onto the end of where I'm pointing here. So what it does is it sits like that. So the wedge is sitting in here, and then it actually directs and keeps the grease going back in over top of the actual into there. So basically, it sort of forces. We do get some grease on the top of the on the worm gear, but that's all fine. We're just keeping the bulk of it off, because otherwise it just forces up out the top of the actual gear. On the top of since the I'll put that back over there. Since I've got silicone all around here, and then when that goes through, the silicone, the grease doesn't run up the actual shafts, the gear cuts. So when that's on there, I then have one of the original washers that goes on top of here, and that just seals up a bit better, and presto, we have less grease escaping. So because the grease I'm using is a Bel-Ray grease, it's a 0 grade grease, which is a self-leveling grease. So it's a very oily grease in a sense. It's very thick oil in a sense, but it's a grease. So basically, I'm using that instead of the grease. I just find this stuff works a lot better, and it's constantly lubricating the worm gear all the time. So that's that. Another thing I do is I put a rubber foot on the back of this here, so the motor sits on it so it doesn't vibrate up and down. And another thing I've just doing recently is putting some 8mm washers. These are 8mm washers. There's 2 of them. They glued in just to stabilise this area a bit here, because the bracket for the motor, which is sitting on here, it's only holding in a very, very small area. So basically I put that there just to stabilise a bit more. And since I'm actually drilling these holes out to put the self-clenching nuts in, there's not as much surface area onto that aluminium. So I'm giving it a bit more body to physically to get it all happening. So this is what the inside of the motor looks like. 12 set of windings. There's the commutator. So there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this. I've actually glued in one washer in the point of here. This is these are the original shafts that are in here. They're in good condition, and there's a spider on me. Get off me, spider. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you this coming apart. So basically, I've got to pull this apart to physically get grease in all the bits and pieces. So we have two Allen keys in M4s. So this is the one that I had before. I had to drill out this to 6mm, and I had to drill the other one out to the motor side out. This side had to go out to 5mm. The original was 4mm. So basically these are a one that I got a hold of, and I increased the grub screws from M3 to M4. So that's got that. Another little mod I do for this is I put on a Teflon washer, and then in this case a fibre washer, and then another Teflon washer, to try and keep as much of the grease inside the actual housing as much as possible. So I'll put those 3 there. And well, now in here we have, get the light right direction, right in the middle there is the Allen key that locks the worm gear onto the worm shaft. So basically there it is there. Get the other shaft out of the road. So we can now pull the actual shaft out. Put that aside. And while I've got the worm gear up here, what I do is I get these Teflon washers from Create. This is what they use now, and I actually glue them to each end of the worm gear. So I'm not fighting with trying to get these in there. So I actually do a bit of work to these and make sure it fits nice and neat. And sometimes you spend a couple of hours trying to get this to work 100%, all depending on how much of this washer is here. So this is the end washer, because there is a sealing O-ring in the end here, so we've got to have a flat surface for it to run on. So that is actually quite tight. I'm just going to push it out so you can see the O-ring. One O-ring. It's a tight fit. It's a loosish fit on here, but I've actually got these, and they actually fit in and they compress down. So when I push it in, you can actually push it out with this. It shows you how tight it goes into this. You've got to get this just right, so it's not too tight, not too loose. It's going to be just right. So I'm going to put that out of the road. So this is a brand new worm shaft. So basically a whole lot of new stuff going into these older casings and everything. So new bolt in the end. And another thing too I do with these is I space that bolt. Normally doesn't go through very far. So what I do is I actually put it in. So it uses that as an end stop as well to stop the worm gear thrusting backwards and forwards. So it won't go that way because it's got the end of the bolt pushing on it, as well as the Teflon washer here. So I measure it and get it just right, so the Teflon washer is hitting the brass bush at the same time the shaft is hitting the end. So basically when force backlash goes that way, it pushes up against the bolt and there. When it's going the other way, it's pushing up against the coupling and the motor and everything else this way. So basically I'm trying to limit the amount of end float in the thing. And then especially these Teflon washers in these, you can tighten these up a bit, but you've got to have it just right again. So basically this is just a quick run through. What else has happened? Yep, I think I'm up to date. We shall be back when I start to rebuild things. We'll be back soon. Catch up. Almost forgot. One other thing I do is I get a hold of a slightly bigger screw to hold the and I tap the mounting points for the limit switch assembly and the potentiometer bracket. I couldn't find the exact size screws, so I got the next best one, and this is all brand new with a star washer. So, and then what I do is I drill out these holes ever so slightly, that one and that one, to the next size up. So basically I've got bigger screws, and I also tap these. I've got the tap to go with these, drill them out and tap them to this size, so I can just screw them straight in. So that's something else I forgot to mention before. Okay, we'll be back. Another quick update. Here we go. Righto, I have now installed the worm gear and worm wheel and my 0 grade bell ray grease. I'll probably get the light in the right direction. I'll turn down the light on too as well, would probably help. The grease, as you can see, is fluid enough. It actually physically just moves around, and what they call self-leveling grease. So when it sits for a while, it just sits back down again, and basically, it recoats everything when you start it again. The other greases will move away, and then when they moved away, they'll only just be very minor recoating and not mixing. This grease will mix all the time, constantly mixing as it's moving around. So it's like as you can see, it piles up on top. And that's what the swiper is for. That'll swipe it back into the channel, which is only very small on this side, as you can see. And you probably saw a bit of red there. That's a little bit of the Loctite on the actual on the Allen key into the worm gear. The same thing applies. I've Loctited these two grub screws as well. I've put a little bit of grease on the top of here because that sits hard on this section here, and I'll be putting a bit of grease around this as well, just to make things all get off to a good start. But I just thought I'd show you this. And even if I tipped it up, eventually you'll see the grease move. It's probably, oh, there it's running already. Oopsies. Yeah, there's a bit of liquid, more liquid in this one as well. So what I do as well is once this goes on, first off I put some silicone on this side, on this side. I'll put this in, lock it down. I've actually re-tapped these screws to M3s, and then when I get this on, I put a bead of silicone around the top on this side here. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. So I shall be back. Okay, another update. Here we go. Worm cover plate is on, all siliconed up. Everything moves really good. Screws all down. I put silicone underneath there as I said I was going to do. Just silicone around there. It's all filled up, and now it's minimum amount of leaking with the way I'm doing things with bits and pieces everywhere. So there we go. We shall be back. Okay, motor is now installed. I'll tell you one thing, it makes it so much easier when you put self-clinching nuts on that bracket, because trying to get this nuts down into here with other ones in the road is just a nightmare. So the self-clinching nuts definitely do a much better job. There we go, motor installed. You can see the pad down the back there, maybe just, there it is. So there we go, so we're all good skis. Oops, flaring out a bit. Okay, I'm going to carry on. There you go, next update. We now have the limit switch in, and the pot bracket, and the wiring in, and also the plug. Socket I should say, not plug, socket. So I must admit, with the DC motor in here, there's a lot less in here. With the motor start capacitors would normally sit here, and if you had the B model, there's a motor start capacitor sitting here, there. So there's a lot less bloody stuff in it with a DC motor in here. A lot neater and too easy to run, but whatever. That's how it goes. Swinging right around. There we go. We'll carry on. Okay, we're back. Rightio, there's been a few changes since we were last around. This has probably been nearly a month or more. Other jobs got in the way, so I've had to physically put this on the back burner. The last time I was here, I had found a few problems that I needed to address. So basically, one of them was the potentiometer, which was sitting over in here, in this side, the back, was a small one, and it was starting to give me problems. So I couldn't find another one the same size, so I have moved the potentiometer. I got a brand new one, 100 ohm I should say, and I put it on this side. So I've drilled out the holes for where the switch used to be, and I put a rubber grommet in there just to cover it up a bit better. So, and I put it on a bracket which comes off the mounting, so it's a little Z bracket. This is from a KR400 Z bracket, and basically it just fits in there, and that uses the bolt for that one there, so I don't drill any extra holes. So that was one little problem that was causing me grief. The other being the potentiometer. I had potentiometer problems. I had a cheaper aftermarket potentiometer, 5 ohm potentiometer here, and it was playing up, and so I went back to my normal one, which is, what's this one, the I think what this one's called. Is it a cherry? I think it's a cherry. So basically I had to go back to that one again, because I actually got more in, and I was trying to utilise what I had. I got more in and basically replaced it, and the problems went away. The only other problem I had was the motor, little geared motor I had sitting in here. It was still too high geared, and the needle was hunting backwards and forwards because it was just, there's a number of things that was going on, but it was just too high geared, so it was just going too fast, even though they said it was a low gear. So I had to put in a refurbished or a new one of the Create ones, because in the meantime I got an order in from Create, so basically I was able to get a few more bits and pieces in. So basically, so that was what's happened. So I've replaced that. I had to do a rewiring here, because this wire was not long enough, which is in this loom for the front panel. So that was over here, so it was running off that loom there, so I had to get it out, and I ended up putting a 2-pin one in here to make it easier. Instead of a single pin, it's a 2-pin to make it easy to locate it and everything, and they're just common wires, so I don't know which way it's stuck in, so it's all good. So basically this now has been tested backwards and forwards, up and down and left and right, and now I can officially say now it's actually up and running. I've got my little patch lead on the back here. It doesn't come like this, it comes a little patch lead, this one, to do my testing. So I had to redo the labelling on the back because this was over there, so I'll put a new cover on, new label onto that one, new label down the bottom, and basically has a remote control sitting there. I've put in my little cable holder which should sit there like that, so when you use these things. So basically we're all ready to go. I just thought I'd show you this one first, and then I'll show you the finished rotator. So I started rebuilding the rotator and finishing the rotator off, not realising I hadn't actually taken any footage of the final assembly part of it. So basically, I'm not about to pull it back apart now. So basically, it has now done, and basically, it's all I need to do is I'm going to finish me labelling off at the bottom. I just noticed that, and so your mask brackets will basically sit on like that. I've got stainless steel bolts to go through to clamping, but I also found I had some galvanised bolts for the mask brackets, bolts and washers and stuff. So, whoops, wrong way around. So I've got a set of these and washers to go on the mask bracket, so there's a set of 4 of those to go with that. And at the same time I found a whole bunch of galvanised bolts, which is their ones, the ones they were using, to go on the bottom. So basically I'm using some of the original stuff that came with these things. So basically this is now ready to go. I've even labelled it here, probably can't see it, but we'll try if it doesn't flare out. I engraved it a bit, RC5, and I put the DC24 since it's 24 volts, so I'll put that in there. So that's done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work around the muddy thing here, the camera. So I've got my little patch lead, which has a 8-pin cinch socket on the back of it. So I'll plug this into here. I use this one a lot for doing these sort of things. Might just tilt that way. We'll plug that into here. Since it's got an IEC socket in the back of it, we plug the IEC socket in. Righty-o-ty. So, for all intents and purposes, we can take this thing for a drive. I must admit, I've done some test runs already with this, and it's very quiet. No pulsing. I'll come back any further. Oh yeah, we're about right there. Righty-o-ty. So, okie dokie. So, basically I've got the speed set about halfway. Now, if you don't remember that the direction switch is lockable, so we'll go around to the left first, and I would CCW. Oh, help! I turn it on first. Be a good idea. Turn him on. LED lights illuminate. You probably can't see them, but if you look down in there, you'll see the lights illuminating. They illuminate it nicely. Those strip lights I put in. So basically, let's go around to the left. We can lock it. As you can see, I'm about half speed. And we can go flat out, and we can come all the way around to slow speed. I'm trying to remember what the actual speed times were at the top of my head. I can't remember what they were now. I did time it. So go from super slow, and the LED light works in here too as well. So when you get around the end and the limit is activated, the LED comes on. And as you can see, the LED is on now. So the limit light works. We can now go back the other way, and we can just, that's now flat out. Past west. So basically it's I think it's over 60 seconds, 60 seconds rotation time, or a bit slower, a bit faster I should say, than 60 seconds. But now we can dial the speed back, and the PWM speed controller works really well, and we'll slow it right down again. I've got to write the manual, do the manual up for this thing yet. So as you see, it's going really well, nice and slow. And then we get around to the limit will switch. The limit switches will activate, and the limit light will come on again. There we go. Let's see, the limit light is on again. There it is. So there we go. This is just showing it all working. So I can move forward with this. It's just been so long. Let's bring him back the other way, bring back to north again. So that's half speed. So actually, I think the little motor in here makes more noise than the actual the rotator does. The previous motor, little servo I had in here was nice and quiet, or reasonably quiet, but it was just way too fast. So we'll take it north. Actually, we'll go right down to really slow speed, and we'll zoom in and see little markings here. There we go. On north, and I've got my north point smack bang on. So I've actually got the north point marked on here, and we've got a south mark on this side, so you can see where everything is when you're doing alignment and testing and whatnot. So I've actually stuck that on here. So basically that's showing it all working. Basically I end up doing a few more screws because these were painted. I'd had two were missing, so I've got new ones of those, and I've got the clear cover for the terminals at the back here. So they have a clear cover that goes over here underneath these two screws, so that will go back onto there. So we're all good. So basically everything is working really well now. I can move forward. Oops, I've just pressed it on again, so we'll dip it the other way again. Oh, and I'll turn the power off at the same time. I bumped the switch off and it turned at the same time. There we go. So there we go. So basically I'm going to put the top on this. I'm going to take some more photos, and then I'm going to get this thing video all edited and whatnot, and it'll be up for sale. Actually, I think I've got a customer that actually wants this one, so we'll be good. Okay, catch you next video.